DASH assessment. What is it? One of the things that Safe Lives found when they looked at their MARAC data, shocking jargon, Multi-Agency Risk Assessment Conference, which is what happens when there has been a very serious incident of domestic abuse. One of the things that MARAC data showed was that they were getting very few referrals from adult social care.
It's communicating with that individual, it's making them feel safe, because what we've found in our research is that they often don't accept support because it's something new. It's their unknown, it's breaking us, it's something not of the norm for them, and it's somebody else that they then have to tell what's happened, and then they still have that fear of not being believed. So I often work in the approach of that I will bug adult social care, I will bug children's services, I will bug drug and alcohol support just to get in to make that initial contact.
And I suspect something that we'll need to come back to at another date. The Equality Act doesn't expect for a protected characteristic that there's a diagnosis. It's the presence of a long-term need. But the problem is, way too many people think without an actual diagnosis, we can't offer a service. And it's not true, and it's not the case. But it's not, the Equality Act and reasonable adjustments are not being effectively used yet, are they? We don't have to wait for a diagnosis, and particularly for people with learning disabilities. Very, very many adults are only getting diagnosed in adulthood, aren't they, with things like ADHD, autism, spectrum needs, neurodiverse needs.
So you get people like that out there, but there are some representations, but you don't get a lot of positive representations of sexualised disabled people, do you? If you go on the stock image website, the stock image website, where you can get images to populate your publications, you generally get very beautified, clinical, clean images of disabled people and nothing too sexualised.
They've done some great work looking at domestic abuse and gay and lesbian relationships, and they've really highlighted the assumptions, sometimes poor responses, lack of understanding from the police, and there's been some really powerful material produced about the needs of LGBT and disabled young people.
You perceive disabled people, whether you see them as really complex, even though they're probably not, but the perception of looking at them is going, oh my God, they can't do anything. All of these things, all of these rights apply to everyone who's disabled. There's no like sort of pecking order.
Within Black Country Women's Aid, we have the IDVA team, so those who are victims of domestic violence. We also have our stalking team that support those across the West Midlands. We have Ask Mark that supports male victims of sexual violence, domestic violence and stalking. And then you've got my team where we support victims of sexual violence across the whole country as well. We're having these meetings with different professionals, so the police, medical professionals, IDVAs are coming in to see what kind of processes and procedures can be put in place to protect, most of the time, women or the victim and the family as well.
We all have a relationship with everything,
Yes.
so it's not an incorrect word, but in that context, our understanding then has assumptions about a partner relationship. So it's difficult because it's still the right word in the context you're talking of describing a relationship between two people, but it then gets misunderstood as something good.
Yeah.
So, but I would suggest that's the element that needs recording. So you use relationship with a small r, but then clarify what the concerns are that you've got.
For every client that comes through our door with every one of these, it could be that they only want one of them, or it could be that, like I said, you've got that one person that will tick everything off.
And I know, as a collective group of professionals and key individuals who would know that person would be enabled to keep that person safe and what strategies would be available for anything. And that may include going to Marriott for advice and guidance. It may include arranging professional forums, whether it's MDTs or whatever, to to ensure that key personnel are involved in those discussions.
We've had a big hole in our information if you hadn't done that, Jovan, because that was the foundation for then understanding what was missing for Miriam, in part, wasn't it? Are often seen in the light of child protection when actually they need help and support for themselves alongside the being a social worker for the children. And one of the problems is that a lot of adult social care departments don't get involved because the learning needs are not thought individually to meet the threshold for adult social care involvement.
We work with some people with a layer of profound and multiple learning disabilities. They don't use words to communicate, they use other means.
We carried this out from the Anne Craft Trust and it was funded by the Lloyds Bank Foundation.
That is that bullshit, it is bullshit that disabled people are inspirational. If you look on our website, and I'll have to send a link out, there's Katie uses a wheelchair, she's currently doing a master's, and she's got a blog on there which talks about being so pissed off with being called inspirational. Every little thing she does, people go, oh, you're great.
Be safe, be happy, don't hurt people. There was none of that stuff. And maybe we need to ask a lot more questions about safety in relationships for elders. And maybe those are terrains that we don't normally tread into. And they're perhaps places that are not that easy to ask about.
Exerting their power and their control on this vulnerable person. So now we're talking about those who've got LD. That person's even more vulnerable and marginalised and less likely to speak out about it. And then they finally are ready to talk about it, and they might talk about it with such confidence in the sense of they've said it so many times to themselves, they just kind of blurt it out, it kind of comes out like word vomit. And a lot of the times people are like, oh, that's rehearsed. They've practiced that so many times, that's not real, and then they just close their case.
And these are really useful for very simple pieces of work with people who, most people I've worked with with learning needs, need you to use visuals as well as words. You can't just work with words. But look broader as well. There is stuff out there. It's not easy, but there is stuff out there.